Hello everyone, how are you guys doing? Hopefully you guys are having a wonderful day, and today we are here with a video on what is going to be the best range training weapon for you from 1 to 99. Now, this isn't going to be a guide necessarily on range, but it'll have a lot of aspects of it, so should be very helpful even if that's not exactly what you're looking for. But as you can see, vouching myself, I have 27 mil range XP, many different accounts. The mid to late game range is definitely what we're going to focus on, but this has always just been something that's kind of intrigued me, so today we're going to take a deeper dive into what weapons are going to be best for you going forward. Now, I will talk a little bit about what I did kill on this account and other accounts to get my range up. As far as starting out, I do really recommend just going to sand crabs, ammonite crabs, rock crabs, if you don't know where either the two newer ones are, just something with low defense that you can just hit a lot on. You don't want to be going to anything that has too high of defense. So the crabs work out perfect because they don't really have any defense, and that's also what we use for testing for this video because, you know, they are an unbiased testing. What I will say is, though, if you go to monsters with more defense for Slayer task and whatnot, might be a bit harder to kill. But that is where I tested this out at, and it's also a good training spot going forward. Once you start to get to the mid-game, Nightmare Zone, Slayer, Wilderness bosses in general, and Rev Caves are all great ways to make money and also profit at range in some of those instances, and that's basically what I did on these accounts. So you already know what we're going to be covering, and we'll go ahead and just get right on into what weapons are going to be best for you for 99 range. So we already talked about the idea that you should be going to something with low defense. This is very crucial early on because early on you're not going to have a lot of attack accuracy. So this is the ranged throne section of the little tabs over here that you can click on. And we'll use this for the beginning because it's very easy to explain. Essentially, from level 1 to 50, there isn't really much of a switch up in terms of what weapons you'll be using. I mean, you do switch a lot, but it's essentially the same thing. You'll be using the best in slot darts that you can all the way up until probably about adamant darts is where you'd want to stop. That's a personal choice, I guess. You could go up to rune if you have a lot of money. You could, go with mithril if you don't have a lot of money. That's just something you'll kind of have to feel out over time and see what you can afford to actually spend your money on. But early on, a lot of this won't cost too much. So if you have basically no money, just stick to myth darts. If you have what you feel is a comfortable amount, you can keep progressing. And so from 1 to 50, I would really just say go with darts, and wherever you feel like you can afford, just stop there. Now, if you're super crazy into progressing your account early and you can fund it with another account per se, switching to knives is kind of ideal because essentially each knife, say the bronze knife, is really the iron dart, and the iron knife is really the steel dart. They're all essentially the upgraded form of that dart for that level, but they cost more. So you're going to be spending a lot more money, and it's something you can do if you want to, but not something I'd recommend for most. And that's essentially 1 through 50. That was really easy to map out, so we just knocked that out right now. Now we'll kind of move on to the meat of the video. And so now that we got that out of the way, it's time to get into the much more grittier part of this video, and we'll start by just going over some of the hourly rates in regards to how much GP it's going to cost to run these setups. This is going to be useful because you guys have a base idea, so whenever I talk about it in the future, we won't have to go through all these numbers again. We'll start with the cheapest setup, which is the mithril dart setup. That is only 6k GP an hour to run. This is assuming that you're using accumulators and assemblers as needed. The second least expensive is the rune crossbow with broad bolts, which is an assumption I'll make later once you can hit 61 range. Then we have the magic shortbow imbued and rune arrows setup. That is only 24k an hour to run. Second to the top, we have adamant darts, which is a total of 55k an hour to run. Then by far the most expensive selection is the toxic blowpipe and adamant darts at 560k an hour, which is quite hefty. It's a lot of money, but of course it is going to be quite a DPS upgrade as well. So that's what we're working with now to see which is going to be best for us. So now that we got the rates out of the way, we can talk about the level breakdowns, and the first level breakdown we'll be talking about is from level 50 to 61. 50 is important because that's when you unlock the magic shortbow, and I would also recommend that you imbue it, as it just helps the magic shortbow overall, and you can spec twice now with it. At the same time, it just requires less special attack total, so that will help your DPS per hour. And from 50 to 61, the 3 items I considered were the magic shortbow, the mithril darts and the adamant darts. We hadn't talked about a mithril dart addy dart comparison, so we can do that now. The adamant darts are going to be 14% better DPS wise than the mithril darts. However, they do cost a lot more. Addy darts are like 85 GP each, while myth darts are like 7. So definitely an increase in total, but the DPS actually does end up being worth it if you can make over 340k an hour. Essentially, that 14% increase saves you 8.6 minutes at the cost of 50k, and in total, that comes out to 350k an hour almost. So if you can make over that, it's worth it to use adamant darts, and I have tons of money makers on my channel, so you should be able to make more than 350k, thus making adamant darts the winner compared to mithril darts. So I will just now basically discard mithril darts, and we will not talk about them anymore. They're not really worth it if you can start making money, but early on, I just don't assume people can make money because they really don't know what they're doing. But that's fine, totally understandable. But then bringing in the magic short bow compared to the adamant darts, the magic short bow actually performs at a little better rate if you're using kind of a standard gear setup for level 50s. It's marginally better and it's slightly cheaper, so the magic short bow ends up being the best selection to use, but it's very close, so if you have to use darts for some reason, it's not the end of the world. Now we'll move on from 61 to 75 range. I will still consider darts later, because adamant darts kind of do make a comeback later, but early on, they just don't have a high enough max hit to be able to be that great for training. But from 61 to 75, now we can actually bring in the rune crossbow, and I would imagine people should be using broad bolts because they're cheap. It's a good way to save money. There may be better bolts eventually, but for this scenario, broad seem to be the best. And overall, the magic short bow imbued ends up having a 16% DPS output compared to the rune crossbow. And the magic short bow only costs 5k GP more an hour to use, so the magic short bow definitely wins from level 50 to level 75. And so now we move on to the kind of later levels and where most of your XP is going to lie. I actually did do 3 different accounts worth of testing for this. I tested them at level 75, 88, and 90 to get 3 different kind of brackets of results. This was kind of helpful also for kind of backwards navigating what the rates should have been for previous levels, so it was helpful to do this and also to give hopefully a pretty accurate example of what this should be. So starting at level 75, my XP per hour with all 3 of the setups, the adamant darts, the blowpipe, and the magic short bow imbued with rune arrows, was 54k an hour for the darts, 80k an hour for the blowpipe, and 56k an hour for the magic short bow imbued. With the bow being better than the darts, this means that we're going to compare the blowpipe and the magic short bow imbued for these levels. The blowpipe ends up being 42.8% better, thus meaning that at the end of an hour worth of testing, if you use the blowpipe, you would have saved yourself 26 minutes of time at the total cost of 530k. I got this by subtracting the cost of the blowpipe minus the cost of the alternative setup, which in this case was the magic short bow imbued. And so if your 26 minutes of time is worth 530k, that means an hour of time is worth 1.22 mil. So if you can make more than 1.22 mil an hour, you should be using the blowpipe because that's going to be a better setup for you in the long term. Now moving on to 88, we have 64k XP an hour for the darts, 94k XP an hour for the blowpipe, and 66k XP an hour for the magic short bow imbued. Keep in mind I'm also using a ranging potion for these results as well. And the hourly comparison ends up being very similar to that of the last level bracket. The blowpipe is just a little bit worse, only saving you 25 minutes instead of 26, and thus the total cost of your hour is equal to 1.27 mil. So if you can end up making more than that, again, it is worth it to go with the blowpipe. I mean, at 88 range, honestly, you should be able to, either through Revs or Venenatis, I would highly recommend. I also have a Venenatis guide, check that in the description below. But yeah, I mean, definitely would say the blowpipe's worth the shot at this point. And then just to make sure even further, at 99, we do actually have the comeback from the adamant darts. I guess at this point, somewhere in the mid-90s, you end up getting a high enough max hit to where they are actually better than the magic short bow imbued, but it really doesn't matter. Here, looking at the rates, you can see the darts are 75k, the blowpipes 103k. That might be a little higher. Keep in mind I was testing this at Ammonite Crabs, and I kind of had to work to constantly keep in combat. But then the magic short bow finally is at 74k. So here we're comparing the darts to the blowpipe actually, and the blowpipe is just, you know, a little worse. Only saves you 22.4 minutes at the cost of 505k. So works out to, if you can make more than 1.35 mil an hour, again, you should be using the blowpipe, which at 99 range, you most definitely are. So yeah, that is basically it. Me and this little mountain goat hanging out right here, telling you all about how you should approach range, and hopefully you guys enjoyed that video. If you guys did, make sure to leave a like. If there's anything you want to see from me in the future, any videos, any questions you want answered, let me know in a comment down below. And if you like what someone else said, like their comment so I know who likes it, you know? In addition to that, I will link a DPS calculator down below that helped me out with some of this video making stuff. Trying to transfer backwards through levels was very helpful through this, and also you can put in what type of monster you're killing there, so you can figure out what exactly is best for maybe every single Slayer task you need or whatnot. It'll be down there if you need it. So, and yeah, if you want to see more videos like this as soon as they go live, make sure to subscribe. But that will be it from me. So hopefully you guys have a wonderful day, and bye.